have unconfirmed reports this morning that a plane has crashed into one of the towers of the World Trade Center.
There's a huge pall of smoke coming from that direction.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Johnny Ray Show. 19 years ago, on September 11, 2001, 19 terrorists who were members of Al-Qaeda, an Islamist extremist network, hijacked 4 commercial airlines. In a coordinated attack, the hijackers intentionally flew 2 of the planes into the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center, and a third into the Pentagon. Learning about the other hijackings, passengers and crew members on the 4th plane launched a counterattack, spurring the hijacker pilot to crash the plane into a field in Pennsylvania. Nearly 3,000 people were killed on that day, the single largest loss of life resulting from a foreign attack on American soil. Welcome back, folks, to the Johnny Ray Show. It's been 19 years, and the question of the day, where were you when you heard the news of the Twin Towers attack? Do you think the never forget saying has stuck in 2020 America? I personally remember it like yesterday. It was in my 9th grade current events class at Owasso Mid-High, Mr. Holloman's class. And I remember when the TV was turned on, all we saw was wreckage in New York City. Do you think that in 2020 the never forget stuck? Or do you think Americans have slowly forgotten? I think it has stuck with most. I mean, Facebook is flooded every year with 9/11 pictures and posts. But I think America is being replaced with outside forces trying to take away from the remembrance. I mean, Ilhan Omar just a short time ago described 9/11 as some people did something. We have a lot of exciting news to get to today. We'll go over the audio of Trump and Bob Woodward. Don Lemon and Chris Lesser Cuomo rant on Christians, whites, and Trump supporters. Trump hints at a few senators he's nominated for Supreme Court Justice. And Dr. Fauci says winter will make COVID worse. So let's jump right in. Back in March, President Trump did an interview with Bob Woodward, a Washington Post writer, if that's what you want to call them these days. Now, I'll call a spade a spade. Trump could have used better wording, but we all know Trump is impulsive and doesn't really think about the repercussions of his wordings on the fly. There's never been an argument there. But when he specifically says he plays it down so Americans don't panic, I mean, isn't that what a lot of people did on both sides? Take a listen to this.
It goes through air, Bob. That's always tougher than the touch. You know, the touch, you don't have to touch things, right? But the air, you just breathe the air, and that's how it's passed. And so that's a very tricky one. That's a very delicate one. It's also more deadly than your strenuous flus. This is more deadly. This is 5 per. This is 5% versus 1% and less than 1%. So this is deadly stuff. Well, I think, Bob, really, to be honest with you,
sure, I want you to.
I wanted to always play it down. I still like playing it down.
Yes,
because I don't want to create a panic.
And again, I get it. He should have said, like, I don't want to blow it out of proportion or something to that effect. But what about Donald Trump screams self-restraint? I mean, this is the guy who sits on the toilet tweeting to dunk on Democrats at 2 a.m. He's just like, frankly, I am the best, okay? Democrats suck. You all suck. I am the best, okay? I mean, let's be serious. In February, nobody took this thing as serious as they do now. I mean, Nancy Pelosi told everyone to come on down to Chinatown in February. Do we all forget about that? Here, this is her literally saying, don't fear anything, come on down, get some dim sum, okay?
Coronavirus also impacting business in San Francisco's Chinatown. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who represents San Francisco, toured the area this morning. She says there's no reason tourists or locals should be staying away. NBC Bay Area's Mark Matthews has been with the House Speaker all day. He joins us live in San Francisco's Chinatown. And Mark, businesses, are they really hurting there?
Well, to hear some business owners tell it, Janelle, this coronavirus scare has had an enormous impact. Speaker Nancy Pelosi told me she came here to Chinatown to combat fear.
That's what we're trying to do today, is to say everything is fine here. Come, because precautions have been taken. The city is on top of the situation.
The speaker was greeted by shop owners with open arms.
I love it. I love it, Nancy. I love it. I'm so glad you came. Oh, you make my store famous.
She visited a wok shop, a temple, and a Chinatown icon, the Golden Gate Fortune Cookie Factory, started 58 years ago by owner Kevin Chan's mother and uncle. Chan told me his business has been decimated.
I went down 70%.
Chan believes the fear of the virus is racially motivated.
I think it is. Because even when I walk out, I cough a little bit, my throat is itchy. They look at me, oh, like this. Scary.
As Pelosi walked from the cookie factory to lunch at a dim sum restaurant, she hugged friends, waved to onlookers, and downplayed the racism issue, saying she understands people are concerned about China.
But that shouldn't be carried over to Chinatown and San Francisco. I hope that it's not that, but all I can say is I'm here. We feel safe and sound, so many of us coming here.
Nancy Pelosi went on to say that she is concerned that the president's budget proposal cuts 19% from the Centers for Disease Control. The president in India today said that the coronavirus is under control in the United States. Reporting from Chinatown, Mark Matthews, NBC Bay Area News.
And let's be honest, how can anyone be mad at Trump for downplaying the virus in February when the great and wonderful Dr. Fauci himself lied to people in February saying, don't use masks, they don't work, they're useless. Then, when asked about it a few months ago, he said they said it to not have people go out and buy up all the masks because the essentials needed them. I mean, isn't that downplaying? The hypocrisy is kind of out of hand, don't you think? So let's recap. It's okay for Nancy Pelosi and the great and wonderful Dr. Fauci to downplay the virus in February, but not okay for Donald Trump, who, by the way, while he was downplaying, was still taking the necessary precautions, like banning travel from China. All the while, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and the 900 other Democrats were calling him a xenophobe for the travel ban. But that's okay for them, not okay for Trump, to try and keep the panic down as to not have a full-scale chaos for a virus that we now know has a 99.96% survival rate. And only 6% of deaths were specifically caused by only the virus. Of course, the mainstream media can't help but jump on the anti-Trump bandwagon by completely leaving out the Democrats did this same thing and saying only Trump is to blame. Take a listen to this.
New audio recordings from President Trump months ago suggest he may have known how deadly the coronavirus could be.
An audio recording of a conversation between the two reveals Donald Trump admitted he intentionally downplayed the threat of COVID-19 back in early February.
Mr. Trump admits he publicly downplayed the severity of the virus so as not to, quote, create a panic. Since then, more than 6.3 million people in the U.S. have been infected, and more than 190,000 have died.
Donald Trump knew the coronavirus was deadly, worse than the flu, misled Americans. What do you think?
Well, if this were any other president, I'd say the presidency would be basically over. When you lie to the public about something that ends up killing 180,000 Americans, you really have a huge, huge problem.
And speaking of journalists, well, if you can call them that, Don Lemon and Chris Lesser Cuomo, he's the lesser of the two Cuomos, they ranted for about 10 minutes on CNN the other night, mocking Christians, whites, and Trump supporters. Take a listen to this.
Here's the bad side that I always mitigate in these conversations because I want them to come on the show. You know there's systemic racism, Rick Santorum. You're going to try to say we're imperfect, we have problems with racism. You don't want to say it. Why? Because the president won't say it. You want to say you agree with me so you don't sound like a fool, but you don't want to say the term because he won't say it, and that's their weakness.
They don't know. When has anyone ever admitted that they had a problem? Have you ever had a family member or a friend who had an issue, whether it's addiction or whatever it is, who admitted to it?
People don't like to admit they have problems.
So America has a problem with race. Rick says, okay, they want people to believe that racism. Yes, it's in pretty much everything. Look at how the country was founded. Look at what's happening on the streets of American cities, and not just playing out in America. Look at what's happening with monuments and statues. Look at what's happening. Look at what the president is priority.
Look what happens with pay,
with lending, with all sorts of things,
housing, adoption,
all of it. And so to pretend that it doesn't exist and to come up with some boogeyman about critical race theory, there are people who are out there, I'm sure young people or people who haven't been involved in the political conversation, who think that this is something new. It is not. It is another boogeyman. You have,
but it works.
Every time some sort of Willie Horton-esque thing comes back every 4 years or in political
Willie Horton
battles.
Was George H.W. Bush in Dukakis, where Roger
it
Ailes
all
made
happens
Horton look
over and
extra
over.
black to scare white people. Scaring white people works.
But listen, here's what I have to say. And if you talk to women, honestly, they will tell you, if you're a man and you haven't taken advantage of the privilege or the advantages you have in this society, then maybe you're doing it wrong. If you speak to some people of color, they will tell you the same thing. If you're a white person and you have not taken advantage of being able to always get loans, always get an education, always vote, always have every priority, even if you're poor, if you haven't been able to take advantage of that, then maybe you're doing it wrong. But you should not be blaming the people who don't have agency in society along with you. There is another blame for it, but it's not those people. You're just being pitted against those people because someone is taking advantage of you. You're the mark. You're the person that keeping the other people rich.
They're playing
the other people in power. They are playing you for a sucker. You are the mark to the con that is going on.
Yes.
So this whole idea about there is no privilege in society for white people. That's bullshit. There is a privilege. There is no privilege in society for men. That is bull. There is a privilege. There is no privilege in society. If you're a Christian, there is a privilege in this society because we prioritize Christianity, even though we're supposed to be a country that believes in freedom of religion. But yet, what do?
And separation
we demonize
of church and
Muslims.
state.
We demonize Islam. We demonize anybody who is pretty much not a Christian, or even
But
if
Islam
you don't
hates
believe
us.
in religion.
Islam
you
hates
demon-
us, though.
But that's the whole point. You're making my point. So to believe that there aren't certain privileges in this society, this American society,
No,
that
you're
are
right.
not unique to America, is just plain old
You're
absurd.
right, but only the president makes that grotesque argument.
No.
The
Other
more
people make
wicked
the
thing-
argument. He is just using it to his political
No, but what I'm
advantage.
saying is at the top of the food chain, the fraud food chain, you have the president.
Yeah.
He says no systemic racism, just some bad apples.
Yeah.
I say you got to look at the whole orchard, okay?
Now, quick question. How do you think the low-class white kids, the ones raised in the rural towns, feel when a gay black millionaire tells them that they can always get loans, they can always vote, they can always do this? What about the white kids that have shot credit? I mean, I went to get a home buyer's loan and got turned down by 5 banks. Guess I'm not whiting right, huh, Don boy? You want to talk about systematic racism when blacks are the only race to have black-only scholarships, black-only colleges, black-only dating sites, black-only TV stations, black-only news channels. They are given such a leg up between affirmative action where blacks and Latinos are given advantages at the expense of white and Asian people. But beyond all that, to have a gay black millionaire who has a time slot on CNN simply for being gay and black, and a guy who has a prime time slot simply because his brother is a governor, telling people about systematic oppression and racism. And then Don rants about Trump supporters. We're not the ones burning cities, you schmuck. When's the last time a Trump supporter, or even a conservative for that matter, was out burning buildings, setting cars on fire, and launching fireworks at government buildings? I mean, just look at the Second Amendment lockdown protests by conservatives in Michigan a while back, where not one casualty, not one arrest, and they cleaned up after themselves. Compare that to any of the protests from Black Lives Matter or Antifa or both in Kenosha, Chicago, Minneapolis, Baltimore, Ferguson, etc., etc., etc. Just insert where billions of dollars in property damage, something like 10,000 injured police officers, and like 100 dead now, right? But I guess that's apples to oranges, right? We can't compare those two. On to slightly better news. Trump has nominated a few folks, well, like 40-something folks, as future Supreme Court justices. Among them, my favorites would be Tom Cotton and Ted Cruz. On Tuesday, President Trump released 20 names and then ramped it up to 40 for potential SCOTUS nominations. Of the 40 names, Ted Cruz, Tom Cotton, Josh Hawley, and Daniel Cameron. Hawley declined outright, saying, and I quote, "I appreciate the president's confidence in listing me as a potential Supreme Court nominee, but as I told the president, Missourians elected me to fight for them in the Senate, and I have no interest in the high court. I look forward to confirming constitutional conservatives." Ted Cruz thanked the president and said he would be giving it some thought. Tom Cotton, senator of Arkansas, tweeted, "It's time for Roe v. Wade to go," after the list was released, including his name as a nominee. On to the great and wonderful Dr. Fauci. We kind of spoke about this earlier, but now Fauci has said the winter may end up being worse for COVID than anticipated. Here's the CNN headline. Nearly 30 U.S. states are reporting downward trends in COVID-19 cases, but the pandemic will likely worsen again according to the country's leading infectious disease expert. Now, does anyone notice that when Fauci says anything that prescribes panic or death of Americans, you know, the leftist narrative, he's the leading expert. But when he says, if you can go to Walmart, you can vote, the left's like, who needs that guy? That guy don't know anything. Like, he's not like he's a doctor or anything. We shouldn't listen to him. No. I mean, they do this with anybody. I mean, it's like saying Denzel Washington is the greatest actor when he does a movie promoting Black Lives Matter. Then he does an interview supporting cops. It's like, he sucks. He sucks. We never liked his movies anyway. He's a conservative. He's anti-black people. You know, they're just never happy, ever. So Dr. Fauci says, quote, "We need to hunker down and get through this fall and winter because it's not going to be easy." CNN goes on to report, "It doesn't help that the U.S. continues to see about 36,000 new cases each day, which is better than where we were in August, but still too high, according to Fauci." Well, yeah, dum-dums. 36,000 cases in a day is excessively high, but that's because we're testing at a higher rate now than ever before. Of course the cases are going to be higher. We talked about this the other day. You can't use the same standard for 7 months straight and then say record high cases. Well, yeah, dum-dums, it's a continuous scale. Every day is a record high. That's like taking the home run race between Mickey Mantle and Roger Maris and saying today is the most home runs they've hit. Well, duh. It's a continuous race, you morons. They're saying the activities being moved indoors during the colder months will spread the virus much more rapidly. Well, yeah, we've been saying this. But this is no different than the regular flu season, which I'm still confused. Do we have or don't we have? I'm still confused by now. The COVID-19 virus has completely cured all other deaths in America. Oh, that's right. 6%. 6%. So, the final question of the day. Do you think we can believe anything from Dr. Fauci, the great and wonderful doctor, and the CDC at this point? I mean, they've openly lied to us on numbers and what works and don't work. They spread the fear, then deflect it to Trump. I mean, seriously, who's listening to Dr. Fauci and the CDC anymore? I mean, really, who is listening? Is anybody listening? Because I'm pretty sure that as soon as they lied to us and said masks don't work back in February, and then turned around and said, but everybody needs to wear a mask in April, when they said, oh, masks are a pertinent need in society. And then when they said, we need 14 days to flatten the curve. This is the longest 14 days I've ever seen. We're going on like 170 days of the 14-day flattening the curve. They keep moving the goalposts. They keep telling us this works, and then turn around and say, well, this doesn't work. And then when you ask them about it, well, we had good reason to say what we said. We were trying to keep the PPE for the essentials. Never mind the peons. You know, the ones that are dying, never mind them. We want to make sure that the nurses and the doctors all have their PPE. That's great. But what about the people that died? Because I don't think that there has been record numbers of nurses and doctors dying. But there's been record numbers of regular civilians dying, right? You know, I've been asking this, and this is another question I'm going to ask. See if anybody out there can answer this. If going out is such a big deal, if you're not supposed to go out and you're not supposed to do this and you're not supposed to do that, how come the essential workers haven't died off in droves? That's what I'm curious about. Why are Walmart employees not dying off by the thousands? I mean, they're out there, right? Nurses are out there, doctors are out there, and yet they're not dying off by the thousands. If going out is such a big deal, why are essential workers out there? Why haven't restaurant waitresses and cooks died off in the thousands? It's always people that are out, but not the people that work out there. So, I mean, can anybody answer me this? Can anybody explain to me why an essential worker, it's okay, they can be out there and work and not have them die off, but if you go out to where the essential people work, you die. It's befuddling. It's befuddling. But that's all the time that we have for today. We'll pick up this on next time. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Catch us on Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and of course YouTube. Until next time, I'm Johnny Ray. This is the Johnny Ray Show. Good night, and of course, God bless.